Hi, and welcome to our What Sold video for March 24th through 30th. I'm Wendy, and this is Kevin.
And this is Brax.
And this is Brax. Today we're recording in a different room than we typically record in. We just needed a little bit of a change, so I hope you guys like it. We're not really sure about the lighting, but let us know what you think about this, and maybe we'll do it for future videos. We are going to do it for the next video because we are going to record two back-to-back What Sold videos. We're actually a little bit behind on recording and posting What Sold videos, and that's because we really had a doozy of a week last week. And I'll explain to you guys kind of briefly what happened, but our daughter, my daughter, his stepdaughter, has epilepsy, and one of the medications that she takes, the doctors think that she had some kind of reaction to it. So she woke up one morning last week and she couldn't make a fist, she couldn't point her toes, she couldn't walk. I mean, she was in bad shape, and she had swelling all in her joints, a rash on all of her joints as well. And so we took her to the emergency room, and it was really scary. She felt terrible. She was in extreme pain. They couldn't really figure out exactly what it was, but what they suspect is that one of her epilepsy seizure medications was causing her to have a reaction. And so they took her off of that medication, but kept her hospitalized because obviously they're taking her off of her seizure medication. And it was a medication that you really shouldn't just go off of cold turkey, but if she was having a dangerous reaction to it, they had to do it that way. So because they took her off of that medication and she was on like a temporary seizure medication, they wanted to continue to observe her to see what happened. Also to make sure that the rash cleared up, that her joints cleared up, that the swelling cleared up, and that she was, going to be able to regain ability to walk and all of that kind of stuff. So she was hospitalized for 5 days. And ultimately, almost all of her symptoms resolved. She's still having issues in one of her feet, but she is almost back to 100%. She's changed her medications, and so far, all of that's going really well. She's doing a lot better, but obviously, we had to completely shift our focus away from our business temporarily and focus on that. So that's why our What Sold videos are a little bit off schedule with how we're posting, and we're going to post a couple this week and try to catch up. So anyway, that's what's going on. We also have not been listing anything at all. So sales are really, really, really bad with that. I think sales are bad
We haven't listed anything.
So sales are bad, I think, for a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. But I think primarily that's why sales are bad.
We know why our sales are bad.
Us. Yeah. So let's dive into What Sold. This is for the week of March 24th through 30th. So if you're new here, we normally don't have a crazy story time like that at the beginning of our videos, but we just had a weird, personal issue. Week. Yeah. And we thought we would update you guys on what's going on in our lives. Okay. So before we get started, I'm going to show our disclosures on the screen really quick. So you have information. If you are new here, you have information about us and how we do our pricing and profits and how we sell. So we'll show that really quick. All right, we're back. Okay, so the first thing that sold was a Van Heusen men's dress shirt. It was an olive green long sleeve dress shirt. We got this out of a Facebook marketplace. It was the garbage bags of clothes. We got like 6 garbage bags of clothes. Years ago. Yeah, like 2 years ago for $50. We got all the bags for $50, and each of the listings broke down to just 67 cents. So that was our cost of goods on this item, and it sold for $13.99. We don't have very many of those things left.
No, we're getting really slim on those.
Yeah. Next up was a signed print called Le Fleur by a Texas artist named Henrietta Milan. And these we got from another business that we own, which is a custom picture frame shop. So we had no cost on them. And this one sold for $34.99. Next up was a Line 6 Relay Digital Wireless Guitar System Performance Kit. We didn't know if it worked. It seemed like it had some issues.
Yeah, there's no telling. I got it at the thrift store.
We got it in like a bag of electronic items that appeared to be all audio-visual stuff. So we did list this for parts. So this came from the thrift store. We paid $2.53, and it sold for $50 even. That was on Mercari. Okay, next up was a lot of 6 issues of Magnificat magazine. This is a Catholic religious, like it was a little bitty, small little booklet magazine that I think was a monthly or weekly issue magazine.
I think it was monthly.
Yeah, I think it was a monthly issue magazine.
See, every time I see it, it makes me think of like an anime, Magnificat. And then I'm like, oh no, that's a church magazine. That's not the same thing at all.
Like a character named Magnificat.
Oh, Magnificat.
Yeah, maybe it is like a...
I don't think so.
Like a Catholic action figure.
But that's how it reads to me, not as Magnificat.
Magnificat. Anyway, we found most of these in a storage unit. Not something we would typically pick up, but there were several of them in a storage unit. We had already owned them once we purchased the storage unit. And then, oddly, we also got several gifted to us from a family member. So we just lotted all of those together.
Random.
Yeah, we already owned them. And our cost on those from the storage unit, like breakdown of the per listing cost, was just $1.16. And they sold pretty fast for $12.99.
I mean, yeah, we made what, $3.80?
Yeah.
For what it was, I'll take it because it was something normally you would just donate.
Yeah, just recycle or something.
Or recycle.
Yeah. Not something we would recommend picking up, but
No.
we like to try to list stuff and give it a shot.
A lot of our stuff is stuff I wouldn't recommend
otherwise, we would have recycled. How much would we have recycled? We would have recycled $3.89, and that would have been silly.
Yeah.
Okay, next up was a lot of 5 Disney High School Musical Gabriella doll clothes. These were in the Barbie doll bag of clothes that a family member bought and then donated to us to sell. So it was gifted to us to sell. We didn't have any cost, but the family member actually had paid $10 for this from a thrift store. But they said, no worries, you don't have to pay for it. So that was very nice. And I did figure out what each of these clothes were through Google Lens, and they all came from the Gabriella doll. So we had no cost, and these sold for $14.99. Next up was a 1993 Fleer baseball card for the player Ed Pierce. This was Kevin's card, and that sold for $2.29.
It's really random. I sell little single cards like this all the time, and this is nobody that I've ever heard of, and I knew baseball back then. Ed Pierce. It's just a random card. Somebody must be finishing a set, or they know Ed Pierce. I don't know why you would buy it otherwise. Yeah. No offense, Ed Pierce, but...
He's friends with Magnificat.
Yeah, he's friends with Magnificat.
Next up was a lot of 4 Dudley Thunder Red official softballs. They were all new in the box, but one of the boxes did have damage. We disclosed that. We got those at the thrift store for $4.31, and they sold for $26 even. Next up was a Schleich 2-inch Peanuts Snoopy Joe Cool figurine. It was new with the tags. We found that at the thrift store. It was actually in a thrift store toy bag. We didn't know it was in there. This was a bonus item. We picked up the toy bag for something else completely, and were surprised to find a Schleich figure new with tags in there. So that was a bonus. We had paid 26 cents for that, and it sold for $16.99.
And it was oddly the exact same profit as the softballs.
That's weird. Was? Oh, yeah, that is weird.
Unless that's some sort of mistake.
No.
But no, this came off the spreadsheet.
So yeah.
Random.
Next up was a set of 2 Superior Toy. That was the brand light blue nylon puffy 10-inch and 12-inch plush elephants. These looked and felt like Puffalumps. If you know what those are, I don't remember what brand Puffalumps is. It's like maybe
That's not
Mattel.
The brand, Puffalumps?
Puffalumps was like, like a Cabbage Patch Kid is like by Coleco.
Oh, okay.
Okay, Puffalumps was like the type of toy, and I'd have to look up what the brand is. If I remember to look it up, I'll put the name of the brand on the screen, but like maybe it was Mattel.
But these were not Puffalumps.
These were not Puffalumps, but they had that Puffalumps look.
Imitation Puffalumps.
But you can't put Puffalumps in the title because then, you're misrepresenting your item. So they had that Puffalumps look. So if you ever see an item that looks like that, do check if it's Puffalumps, because those will sell for a lot more. The other downside,
my lovely Puffalumps.
The other downside to these is that they, I think one of the ears have like a tear or a stain on it.
It says reed, so something was wrong with it.
Yeah. I gotten these at a church rummage sale for $1, and they sold for $18.59.
I believe that was the church rummage sale where we got all the photo equipment.
It was. Yeah. So even the fake Puffalumps will do well, but not as well as the real Puffalumps. So be on the lookout for those real Puffalumps. I just like saying puffalumps. It's a fun word to say. Okay, next up was a 1998 complete year set of Popular Mechanics magazines. That came from the garage sale where we got everything for free. They were just they'd had a lot of family tragedy and they were just cleaning out a house and giving away everything for free. So we had no cost on that.
We had a bunch of Popular Mechanics from them, like several years of them. So many, yeah. And this is just one of the years.
This lot sold for $35.98. Next up was a Gideon's Pocket Bible. This one was an orange one from 2016. We got that at a thrift store for 24 cents and it sold for $11.99.
We saw those all the time, and I've found that the ones that look old style, that just have plain covers, sell a lot better than the ones that had like the more modern, electronic-y. I don't even know what they were trying to do.
Yeah, like
trying to be hip.
Gideon.
Hello, fellow kids. Yeah, I don't know, but because we sold another one today, I sent off a brown one. That one was like a 1968 or something.
Yeah. Next up was a vintage Y2K Juicy Couture blue surf velour hoodie track jacket. It did have significant staining on it. We did disclose that.
Hood, yeah.
But those vintage Y2K Juicy Couture track suits, if you can find the whole suit, that will go for a lot. Or the pants or jacket, definitely pick those up. Even if they have flaws, they'll still sell. This was gifted to us to sell by a family member who had found it at a thrift store, bought it for themselves, and then didn't end up wearing it. So we had no cost on that, and it sold for $22.99 despite having those big stains.
And if they were wearing it, you might not see them. They were on the hood.
Yeah.
So if it was like, the hood was crumpled up behind you, you might not see it.
True. Okay, next up was a 2023-2024 Presbyterian Women Horizons Bible Study Sacred Encounters booklet. This was
very specific.
It was a very specific item. Actually, I could not find any other ones listed. So we had the only one listed, I believe. I can't remember. Actually, that might not be true. I do remember it was hard to comp, but I don't remember if we had the only one listed. But this was gifted to us to sell by a family member. We had no cost, and it sold for $12.99.
I mean, $6 on that thing. And that was something that most people would definitely have just tossed.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. Next up was a 2-piece set of Mary Kay satin lips. It included the Shea Sugar Scrub and the Butter Balm. They were new in the box. This was gifted to us to sell by a family member. We had no cost, and it sold for $17.98. And the buyer of this item, we had it photographed with the product, with the boxes sitting there, and then the product that was inside the boxes sitting in front of the boxes. So you could see what the product inside the boxes looked like. And then all the other photos were just the pictures of the actual product inside the boxes. Well, the buyer reached out to us. It was not confusing at all. I mean, it was very obvious. It was very clear in all of the listings. No. The buyer reached out to us afterwards and said, I was expecting to get 2 sets of 2, which, I don't ever want to accuse a buyer of trying to get a partial refund or scamming me, but I always wonder about a situation like that when they ask that kind of question. And so I don't usually, in a situation like that, I don't immediately offer for them to send the item back. I just say, I'm sorry for any confusion. As you can see, that this is what the title says, and the photograph that you saw was the photos of the boxes with the product displayed in front of them. And I just left it at that. I never heard back from them. They didn't respond back. We didn't get negative or positive feedback. They didn't open a return request, and nothing really happened after that. So I don't really know what was going on with that whole situation, but that's how I left it. And so I think that worked out for our favor.
We get a lot of people who just complain about things that were clearly written in the title. I
do think that sometimes, especially, and I was like this too, as a new reseller, I was very quick to give a partial refund because I was fearful of getting negative feedback. And I do understand that mindset, especially when you're trying to grow your feedback and you don't have very much feedback, and one negative feedback could really affect your percentage. So trust me, I understand that. And If you're worried about somebody giving negative feedback and it affecting your percentage, do what you think is right. I'm not telling you to do it one way or another, but I will tell you that as your feedback grows and that becomes less of a concern, I don't let that worry me as much, and I don't really give in to buyers. And unless I know for sure that the mistake was on my part, I do not give a partial refund because there's just no reason to, and that's why we offer free returns. And I've gotten to where I don't really mention the free returns hardly anymore unless I feel like I'm really trying to calm somebody down, because
on something like this, which it was just their bad for not reading the title, then no, you don't mention it.
If somebody's coming in really, really hot, they're really angry, I'll use the free returns as a way to calm them down. Yeah, calm down. This is okay. Available to you.
Everything's all right.
Everything's fine.
You're going to be okay.
Yeah. But otherwise, most of the time I just don't mention it. I just give them the facts and then move on. So that's how we handle that. And now let's move on to the next item. Okay, the next item was a 1995 Topps Finest Refractor Jason Bates card, and that sold for $5.99.
Just one of
no
my
relation
cards.
to Jason Bateman.
No, and again, just a random person, I think. But refractors, I sell random ones all the time because they were hard to get.
Do you think he's as cool as Jason Bateman?
No, nobody's as cool as Jason Bateman. Come on.
I love Jason Bateman.
I love Jason Bateman.
Okay, next up was a pair of the kids' saltwater sandals. This was a pair of white sandals in the size 7. We got these from the kids' liquidation that I purchased when a kids' shoe store was going out of business, and I purchased a lot of their old stock. I had paid $9.09 per pair, and this pair sold for $39.99. Next up was a vintage 1994 Mattel Barbie Fashion Fun Pink Hearts jumpsuit. It was number 7906. I was able to easily figure that out through Google Lens. That was gifted to us in the Barbie bag. We had no cost, and it sold for $8.48. It did have some discoloration, and like the top of it was supposed to be white, and it was real dingy, so it did not sell for as much as some of the other ones would. Next up was an Eileen Fisher plus size charcoal soft knit top, and it had the fabric content of Tencel. It was one of the fabrics. That's a really high-end, nice, soft fabric. There's another fabric called Modal. Lyocell's another one. I think Tencel might be the brand name of Lyocell or Modal. I can't remember which, but those are high-end fabrics, and if that fabric content is in your product and you have room to list that in the title, I would recommend that you do that because that will help your item sell. That tells your buyer that it's a higher end item, and
it's soft.
Some people search.
Makes it real soft.
Yeah, real soft. Some people search for items with that keyword. So if I have room, I tend to include that in there. That was gifted to us to sell by a family member. We had no cost, and it sold for $25.48.
We got really good feedback on that one too.
We did. They said it was nicer than they expected.
Yeah. That's always good. I love getting feedback nicer than expected.
Yes, definitely.
Better condition than expected.
I say this all the time. You want to under-promise and over-deliver.
Yeah.
You will always have happy buyers if you do that. Okay, next up was a genuine Kirby 18-inch angled vacuum cleaner attachment tube. This was in one of the storage units that we purchased. We had, I said that we had no cost because I had already rolled.
I think, you'd already done all the splitting of costs, and we had put that to the side because we thought we were going to lot it with some other Kirby things.
Exactly.
But we ended up listing it separately.
Yeah.
So it says no cost.
Yeah, it would have cost us cents out of the storage unit.
Yeah.
That sold for $18.99. Okay, next up was an Oneida Rogers Silver Plate Flirtation Butter Serving Knife. This came out of the Goodwill bins in a big bag of flatware that we got. We had paid $1.18 for it, and it sold for $9.99. And just in case you missed it when I mentioned it on a previous video, I found a really great resource for identifying flatware, and that is through the Replacements website. They have a it's like a Google Lens on their website that you can use to identify flatware, china, stoneware, different things like that. And it works better than Google Lens because it searches only through their
specifically
database.
For that, yeah.
And once I found that, it made it so much easier to identify flatware pieces because that was one of the things that I would find myself getting tripped up on the most. So it's called replacements.com, and it's really helpful if you are trying to identify a large amount of flatware. Okay, next up was a brand new sealed cassette called Essential Classics Opera Arias. We got that at a thrift store for 13 cents and it sold for $12.99. Next up was a Urban Pipeline men's gray and black plaid flannel cabbie newsboy cap. This was gifted to us to sell by a family member and we had no cost and it sold for $12 on Mercari. That was our first sale on Mercari.
That was the first Mercari sale after they did the no seller fees thing.
Yeah. So the buyer paid the fees on that one, and we didn't have any fees with it. But we didn't have any complaints from the buyer. We got positive feedback on it. So far, so good on that. Although I will say that our sales have been down on Mercari, but they've been down on every platform because we have not been actively listing on any platform. So I think that it's probably because we haven't really been active on there. And so I don't think that we have a good representation. But it is good news for sellers because they do not have any fees for sellers anymore. A lot of people are complaining about the $2 fee to take your money out, but in our opinion, that's kind of like a wash with the no seller fees. So if you're not paying seller fees, the cost to take
on one item would pretty much cover that. I don't know.
The way it changes for us is that we're just waiting a little bit longer, letting the money build up in our Mercari account for a little bit longer before we take it out, so that $2 fee is a smaller percentage of the amount.
I can see if that was, you need that money to survive and that's why you're selling it like that. I can see how that would be annoying because you'd want to take it out as soon as possible. But again, the fees would counteract that. So I don't know. And
then the other thing that Mercari has been touting is that they are offering free returns. So far, Mercari has stated that they're paying the return label. And from what I've heard, that's been true when buyers have opened returns. I do feel like the Mercari return policy seems a little bit loose and vague, so I'm not really sure what's going to happen with that in the long run. That is the only thing that I personally have any concerns over. That remains to be seen what's going to happen with that. But so far, I don't really have any real strong feelings about it either way. I'm not running away from Mercari or anything like that. So I would encourage you guys to just kind of stick with Mercari and let's see what happens with this. And if you do want to check out Mercari and you have not checked it out before, I do have an affiliate link in our description box below, and you can still get $30. You get $10 immediately when you make your first purchase on Mercari, and then after you sell $100 in items on Mercari, you get an additional $20. And it helps me out as well. So if you have not signed up to sell on Mercari or even signed up to buy on Mercari and are interested in checking it out, there is a link in the description box below. Okay, moving on. The next item that sold was a huge, giant lot of 100 plus McDonald's Kids Happy Meal toys from the 90s to the 2000s. These were all loose. These were not new and sealed.
All out of bag.
It was 9 pounds worth of toys. These were ones that we had collected over time from different thrift store toy bags, from
Goodwill
the bins.
Outlet. Just we've got them. We never actively bought any of these. These were all just gotten toys.
Yeah. These were ones that we picked up. We might not have known that they were McDonald's toys or they were inside of toy bags.
Yeah.
So we had separated out our cost on each of the items as we separated out the thrift store toy bags because that's just how we do things. And according to our spreadsheet, our cost of goods on these was $24.77.
Probably high.
Probably an inflated cost, but to be fair, that's technically how much we spent on those.
That's what it says.
That's the spreadsheet way. These sold on an auction, right? On auction?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay. Okay, maybe they sold.
I think they were. You made an offer, offered a buyer, and it had like $20 shipping or something.
Okay.
Built in, something like that.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
It's been a long week, so
I
don't remember. Well, these sold for $53.98.
So we only made $9 on those, but if you saw a previous video, we sold a huge box of sealed Happy Meal toys, and we actually only made like $5 on that, or we lost $5 on that.
No, so, we made money on that one.
Either way, we made more on this.
Yeah.
Oddly, the open ones. Go figure.
Okay, at this time, I want to pause for a moment and invite you guys to subscribe to our channel if you're not subscribed already. If you've made it this far in the video, chances are you are enjoying it or you're hate watching us. And either way, I think we deserve a subscribe. So please consider hitting that subscribe button with the notification bell on, and also make sure you hit that thumbs up button. It really helps us out and lets YouTube know that this is content that you enjoy and that others might enjoy. All right, let's move on.
Speaking of which, my mother is in the other room. She's hate watching Prison Break.
She's so hate watching that show.
She thought it was either a movie or she thought it was a miniseries.
Yeah.
And she was so upset. She's like, I keep watching it and I can't, when is it going to happen? What's happening? When is this going to be over? And then I explained to her that it's 5 seasons of show. Mm-hmm. But she's
so mad that they haven't broken out of prison.
No, they did break out, I think, eventually. And now they're on the run or come back. I don't know. I haven't watched the show. But she's at least in the 2nd season halfway through. She's watched nothing but that show since she started it.
Yeah,
she is hate watching it to death. So, speaking of hate watching.
She's so mad at Prison Break. All right, next up was a vintage 1981 Mattel Barbie aqua blue. Oh, spelling error. Do you see it?
Aqual.
Oh man, this is like a stab in the heart when I see a spelling error.
Good job, stupid.
I know, right? That's how I feel. Halter dress with flowers. This one was from the Best Buy Fashions collection. And this was gifted to us to sell. We had no cost. And despite my error of aqual, it still sold for $9.58. So.
We would have got more if she'd spelled it right.
Probably. All right, next up was a lot of 21 clothes and accessories for an 18-inch American Girl, Our Generation, or My Life dolls. These were primarily gifted to us to sell by a family member, but actually I had been collecting some of these for a while out of thrift store toy bags, out of the bins, things like that.
We have little piles of all sorts of things going.
And then once we collect enough, we list them. So we had enough. We listed all of those, and they sold for $24.99. Next up was a vintage pair of Mattel branded Ken shoes. They were tan athletic tennis shoes. They were branded, or they were marked Hong Kong, and we just sold something. We just sold a Bible. Yay.
Selling a lot of Bibles today.
I know, I'm telling you. And those were gifted to us to sell by a family member. We had no cost, and they sold for $10 even. Next up was a lot of 2. The brand was Karma Living. They were 12-inch pillows, but you could also brand them as a doll. They were doll-shaped pillows. They had embroidery on them. One of them was a cat and one of them was a bear. They were new with tags. We found those in the Goodwill bins. We paid 92 cents for them, and they sold for $30 even. Next up was a vintage 1970s Tomy Smaller Homes dollhouse furniture houseplant. This was actually mine, or actually Nina's. This was our daughter's. This came out of the dollhouse that she had up in her room upstairs. I had actually bought it for her on eBay when I was redoing that dollhouse that she has, which was my dollhouse, which is a dollhouse that my dad made. And when I redid that dollhouse for her, I bought all vintage furniture to go in it and decorated the inside of it with all vintage stuff. It was really cool. This was one of the things in it. And so a lot of the furniture that she really played with it. She played with it a lot, and a lot of it got broken. But this still was in good condition, and she decided she didn't want it anymore, so we sold it. And this sold for $18.38. Okay, next up was an antique 1918 red letter vest pocket edition New Testament Bible. We found this in the storage unit that had the Ziploc bag full of pocket Bibles.
And that's also the one that had...
Yeah. I don't know if we can say that word.
It's the one that had the illicit items.
Yeah, that's also the one that had the special
spoon.
kit.
The spoon and the needle.
Yeah, the special kit inside of it in the purse. So if you haven't seen that video, do go check that out. I will link it in the description box below. That was an interesting unit.
It was.
So this Bible we paid 28 cents for out of that unit, and it sold for $19.99. Next up was a lot of 5 unbranded Christmas ornaments. These I got from a garage sale where we showed up late. It was late in the day. It was like 1 o'clock, and they were just ready to get rid of everything. She said, I'm going to give you these kitchen trash bags, and you can fill them up for $10 each. And I think we filled up like 3 trash bags.
2 maybe. I think 2.
Okay.
But we got a lot of stuff.
We did. And there was a Ziploc bag that they had on their table that had Christmas ornaments in it, and it had some Harry Potter ornaments in it. And I picked that bag up because I wanted the Harry Potter ornaments. So I stuck that whole Ziploc bag in the kitchen trash bag. We sold the Harry Potter ornaments actually first. These were the remaining ornaments from the bag. I just lotted them all together and listed them. They took a long time to sell, but they did finally sell. We had paid 34 cents for them, and they sold for $9 even. Next up was a vintage Eli Co. Pearly Bakelite pocket knife. It was marked made in Italy. The blade did have a chip on it, so we disclosed that right in the title. We got this at an estate sale for $2, and it sold for $11.98. Next up was a vintage 2004 Mattel Barbie Drew doll Fashion Fever Tokyo Pop denim mini skirt. This came out of the Barbie bag that was gifted to us, so we had no cost, and it sold for $19.99. Next up was a Hart Schaffner Marks men's charcoal gray flat front wool dress pants. These were also gifted to us to sell by a family member. We had no cost, and they sold for $19.99. Next up was an Apple SCSI beige system cable.
Scuzzy.
Scuzzy, is that really what you call it? Huh. This was a 25 pin to 50 pin, and it was new old stock. So this was like actually new in the package, Apple branded cable. We found this at a garage sale for $1, and it sold for $19.99. 3 in a row that sold for $19.99. Next up was a Samsung Nexus XM car kit. These were replacement parts for a remote dock player. I listed it as read because I had no way to test it, didn't know if it worked, and I don't believe there was a for parts or repair section in that category. I can't remember exactly, but we had gotten that at an estate sale for 75 cents.
It was in a box with other stuff.
It was, and it sold for $15. Next up was a Mattel Girl Tech Famps double pack Sassy and Shy. This was some kind of like interactive doll thing that you would use with your computer, and it's discontinued. And I don't really know exactly what it did, but we had gotten this at an estate sale for $1, and it had a lot of interest, but it took it a long time to sell. Finally sold for full price of $12.99. Next up was a pair of women's Levi skinny dark wash jeans. We found these at a garage sale for $2, and they sold for $21 even. Next up was one of the Maker's Mark bourbon whiskey bandanas that we got on the Goodwill bins for $1.18, and it sold for $8.48. And well, I think we only have like 2 left.
Yeah, 2 or 3 left.
Yeah.
They were almost gone.
So get them while you can. Next up was a one-piece pair of like a onesie. I mean, you can't use that word on eBay because it's branded by Gerber, but it was a onesie. Yeah, it's true. Of Secret Treasures women's medium blue polar bear hooded fleece pajamas. You have to use one piece or like jumper or something like that.
Pajamas.
Footed pajamas, something like that. We got this out of a storage unit for 28 cents, and it sold for $19.98. Next up was a Photo Explosion Deluxe version for digital photo studio. This was software for a PC. We got that at a garage sale for $1, and it sold for $11.99. Next up was a vintage lot of 8 1980s mini paperback children's books. It included the Smurfs, Garfield, Care Bears, a lot of different stuff. I think Berenstain Bears, maybe.
I don't remember what
it
was
had
that.
a lot of different characters from the 80s. Very nostalgic. We found that at a garage sale for 50 cents, and they sold for $17 even. Next up was a vintage Ralph Lauren men's blue pinstripe long sleeve button-up shirt. It had the pony embroidery on it. We found that at a garage sale for $1, and it sold for $13.58. Next up was a vintage Barbie and clone. I don't know that they were Mattel, so I just listed them as Barbie and clone doll. These were brown plastic Western cowgirl cowboy boots. We got these at a garage sale for 50 cents, and they sold for $13.99. Next up was a Banana Republic women's size 0 petite gold brocade mini skirt. This was gifted to us to sell by a family member. We had no cost, and it sold for $16.99. Next up was a 2004 Mattel Fairytopia pink Alina Barbie replacement fairy clothes. It included the top and the skirt. We were gifted this to sell out of the Barbie bag, so we had no cost, and it sold for $15 even. Next up was one of Kevin's Magic the Gathering cards. This one was Soul Ring. This one sold on auction for $72. We sold several of these.
Yeah, I had a bunch of Soul Rings.
Yeah. Next up was a really good buy. This was a vintage 1960s car light. It was 19 by 34 by 14. I described it as like the size of a lamp that you would put over a pool table, or maybe like a large dining room table. And it was a 2-bulb lamp, and it had the Tiffany style stained glass, which I did include in my listing title because we listed this on Facebook Marketplace, but I would not recommend using the keyword Tiffany style if you're listing it on eBay or really any other major platform. I mean, Facebook Marketplace is a little bit wild, wild west, so you can get away with stuff like that more, but I would not recommend that for eBay because you could get a Vero violation for that. Tiffany is a copyrighted brand name, so you have to be careful about that. But we did list this on Facebook Marketplace. We had purchased this light fixture. It was a vintage light fixture, and I'm not sure if it was used or new, but it was in pristine condition.
It was
we
used.
paid $40 for it.
It's definitely used.
It was beautiful, and we sold it the same day we bought it in less than 8 hours. We sold it for $450, and we sold it through local pickup. We actually sold it to a fellow reseller, and the reseller is somebody that has a brick and mortar store in Denton, Texas. So if you're ever in Denton and you want to check out their store, it is called Old Bear Vintage. Definitely go check that out. And so I'm giving a shout out to them.
And they bought it to hang in the store.
They bought it to hang in the store so you can check out the lamp in there. It was really, really cool. If we had had any place to put it, we probably would have hung it up. It had this like iridescence on it. It was just an incredibly cool lamp.
You know, it was cool if it sold the same day we bought it.
Yeah, true. It was incredibly cool. So that was a great find. So we are trying to be more conscientious when we're at sales and stuff for things that we can sell for local pickup.
Normally, we only look for things that are small enough to ship, but something like that, it was just too cool to pass up.
Yeah. So we're going to start considering things like that more often now. Last up was another Magic the Gathering card. This was one of Kevin's cards. This one was a Demonic Hordes card, and this one sold on auction for $50.99. All right, and that wraps up all of our sales. Let's go over the totals. All right, our total number of sales for this week was 48. Our average sale price was $29.45. Our sales totaled $1,413.53, making for a net profit of $916.66.
That lamp really saved us.
Yeah, without the lamp, it would not have been that great.
And the lamp was also good because there were no fees.
Yeah.
So it was just like lots of profit.
I will give you a warning that the next Wet Sold video is going to include the time that our daughter was in the hospital, so sales were really bad. And then the following week is the week when she got out of the hospital. So we were at home dealing with kind of the aftermath of that. And so sales have been really bad. We
random
actually
little
have not
things we're
started
selling.
listing. Yeah, we're about to start listing again today.
Yeah.
So anyway, just a heads up that our next 2 what solds are not fantastic, but this is the reality of reselling. I mean, obviously life happens. Family has to come first, and you have to be prepared for some of the ebbs and flows. That's why you need to really cherish those weeks where you do sell a lot and put money aside to be prepared for the weeks when you don't sell as much.
Yeah.
So that wraps up everything for this particular week. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, make sure you subscribe, and comment below with how your sales are going. And we will catch you guys on the flip side. Bye.
Say bye, Brad.